Okay, let me record it. See, then the next topic and the final one in SQL Server is user-defined functions. See, you will get confused with functions and then user-defined functions, right? See, functions, whatever we have learned till now is system-defined functions, which are like date functions, right? And then string functions. What else? Ranking functions, right? See, all these are belongs to system defined functions, the which the SQL is already inbuilt. It has those functions, but whatever we are going to discuss now, that is user defined functions, which being a developer will create it, right? So we have two types of user defined functions. The first one is scalar function, and the second one is inline table value function. Scalar function, it will return only one value, and whereas the inline table value function, it will return table data as a result set. So we'll give you example of that. See, basically, I have created a sample functions here, which tells you the basic example of it. See here, there is nothing much with the functions. See, in real time, we hardly use the functions, user-defined functions. In my career, I haven't created a user-defined function, right? So you can get to know how frequent, how often we'll gonna use user-defined functions. But it is important, maybe if there is already created user-defined functions, if you want to go through that also, at least you should get some knowledge, right? So that's the purpose I'm teaching these user-defined functions as well. But in real time, I don't think so we'll frequently use it. So basically, a scalar function, maybe scalar function will use it in real time. Why? Because the purpose of a stored procedure is, right? So if repeatedly any SQL code we are writing it and utilizing, if you want to utilize it, so that code will put it in a stored procedure, right? The same way user defined function also, if you want to follow any standards related to any column, like if you want to append both first name and last name, let's say if you go to table AdventureWorks, I think you all have installed AdventureWorks. All of you, did you all install the AdventureWorks database?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, see here there is a column called first name and then middle name, then last name, right? So if there is a requirement saying that you need to concatenate that first name plus last name as a result set, then, right? How do you concatenate it? First name and last name. Guys, I think someone is unmuted. Please go on mute. Yeah. So we need to write all the times first name straight away plus last name here. So we can delete it. Right, it will concatenate. But which one is first name and which one is last name, we cannot able to recognize it, right? So it is combinedly name is there. So if you want to separate it with any delimiter, maybe space in between that, you have to give it like this. First name plus is a concatenation operator which will club other result set, and I'm clubbing it as a space here. This is the space I'm adding extra in between first name and then last name, and after space I'm adding the last name. If I execute it now, you can see a space here, or else if you want to make it as a comma, you can give comma as well here. All right, see, first name comma last name, right? If there is such kind of requirements in real time, so instead of writing each and every time this formula, we can write a function here and we can utilize that function. See, basically if you want to create a function, I think here already is there, or maybe, yeah, I'll create it here. See, to club it two result set or two columns, right? So we should create a function by default and then we can utilize that function. So I'll tell you how it is. So to create a function, we need to write create function and then the function name, user defined functions, right? So it should be UDF. The name itself says UDF is user defined function underscore. I'll just use concatenate. The naming convention is concatenate two strings, right? And then for that I'm providing the input values, which is we should take those two values as input, right? So that's why I'm creating input parameters, which is first name worker of 20. Guys, please go on mute. And then last name worker of 20. So these are the two input parameters I'm considering it for this function, which means we need to pass first name value and then last name value as the input to the function. Now, and what kind of value it is returning, that we have to declare it for a function. See, function will return a value of only one data type. That's what I told the definition here, right? For the scalar function, only one data type it will return. So here we are clubbing two varchar values, right? So obviously it will returns a varchar value. All right. So you should declare that returns varchar of how much? Should be varchar of 40, right? Why? Because 20 for first name and then 20 for last name, all together combining 40, right? The maximum we are giving. So here also I'm providing the maximum value, maybe 5 more characters extra, 45. Clear why I'm giving 45 here? For input 1, it is varchar of 20. For input 2, it is varchar of 20, 40. Maybe in between we'll provide the spaces and all, right? So for safer side, I'm giving extra 5 characters. So it is 45. And then as begin and end. Okay. So here in between, we have to write our logic. Okay. So to combine these two values, I need one more variable, right? Correct. So for that, I'll just declare another variable, declare @ name varchar of 45 set. I'm setting a value for that name variable, name equals to @ first name plus ls give here comma and then plus @ last name. I'll write the same code here, and then at last I'll just return this one. It is written in this value, which means whatever the output we are storing in a name, it will return as a output. That is what the function meaning here. Any doubts still now?
We can create those first name and last name here in begin and end also, right? Why to give as input?
Right. So why are we creating this function? So to take values from a table, right? Correct. So if you want to calculate on a input values, we need to pass values for this. If you declare this here, how do you pass these column names here? I'll tell you for your question, right? So begin and end, I'm going to create the function. So you will get your answer in a minute. Right click and then refresh. As of now, we don't have any. See, if you expand the functions, you can see table value, scalar, aggregate, system functions, right? Expand the scalar. So you don't have any function now. I'll just execute it. Let me connect to server. Yeah. I have created a function. So if you refresh the scalar function here, You can see it, right? So now what I'm going to do is, to execute a function, we just need to use select and then function name. That's it, right? So we have created a function with input parameter. So if you think, if you do not create input parameter, how do you pass a values which you want to concatenate? I think someone asked you a question, right? How do you pass it? We have to pass it explicitly from outside, right? So for that reason, we have declared as a input variables here. See, if you did not declare here, if you declare it here, you need to hard code the values inside the function, right? We cannot pass it manual values from outside. Got it? Still confusion?
No, it's fine.
Okay. Now I'm just passing a first name from last name, first name comma last name, and then from AdventureWorks table, right? Let's call this table name. Yeah. See what it is telling, user defined function is not a recognized built-in function. So we have to call a function with dbo dot. This is mandatory. Database object. Then only the function will get recognized. See here. This is the schema name, you all know, right? So we have to call a function with schema name. Otherwise, you cannot able to access it, right? It will throw error. So dbo dot schema name. So we have to call a function with select statement. That's it. Select followed by a function name and then the input parameters, which is I'm passing it as a two columns, first name and then last name from the table name, right? So this is the table result set. And if you want to use it all the columns from a table, just give comma and then star, right? Just give me a second. Yeah. So this is how you need to call a user defined function, right? Any questions on this? And if you want to, if you can also pass hard coded value also. See here I am passing it from a table, right? So to taking a two columns as a input parameter values. So here you can also pass two hard code values as well. Select the different function and then APC comma XYZ. Guys, will it work? We have to pass it these values in a single quote, right? Since it is worker textual values, right? Otherwise, it will treat it as a column names, right? So you can see here.
Amar sir,
No? Yeah.
in the statement what we had made, why we need to take a file name as specified, or else can we take any file name and create a function, create a table?
Sorry.
Like you had taken UDF underscore concurrent two strings.
Correct.
Is is it any defined function, or else like can we take any table like employee or something?
Table.
Can we take any function apart from that
Uh,
to join the two names?
Type your question here in the chat window.
I'll share you in the WhatsApp.
Your
After
voice
the
is not
class.
here. No, you can
That's
type it
WhatsApp.
here so that everyone can listen, right, on your question.
Okay, just a minute.
Your voice is not clear, so. So this is, okay, let him type. So this is just another function example. So it is simple. This is just addition of two numbers I'm taking. So here create function and then add two numbers at the rate A and then at the rate B, two input parameters I'm taking. So since I am calling two input parameter values and as integer, and it would returns also as a integer value, right? So as begin, I have declared another variable to store these two values into it, and I'm assigning a value to the at the rate C as at the rate A plus at the rate B, and it will return the C. See, whatever the values which will pass as input, those two values it will treat it as input values, and then it will calculate the two values sum, right? See, every time the same function. See, the beauty of a function is we can call the same function n number of times. I'm creating this function, and then if I do select multiple times, see, for these values this is the output, and the user can change his or their values, and then they can calculate the sum. Not only here, even for this function also we can create once a function, we will create once and then it will be utilized by multiple developers, or we can call that function with multiple values, right? So reusability will be more with user defined functions and also the stored procedures, right? And then these are similar examples only, which is simple. Let's move on to table value function, right? And also I think this we can discuss it, right? See here, I'm creating a function to find an employee name if I pass a employee number, right? I think this will not be much useful, but yeah, see here I'm taking input variable as employee number, and I am expecting output as employee name. So that's the reason why I'm returning it as a worker of 12 here as begin, and then I'm declaring another variable which will stores the employee name. So once after declaration, I'm just assigning a value to it. Either we can use set or select to assign a value. Okay. So here I'm using select to assign a value. Select at the rate en equals to employee name from employee table, where employee number, I think, what are the column names which we have for EMP table? Is it e name? Yeah, e name. And for employee ID, it should be EID, not employee number, EID, right? So I'm passing as a employee ID as input for this function, and it should return employee name. If let's say I'll pass double one while calling a function, it will return the name, right? And if I pass any other employee value, it will return that employee ID name, right? Okay, someone is unmuted. I'm getting background noise. Please mute it. So that's a simple usage of user-defined scalar function. And then now let's move on to user-defined table value functions. See, till now we are getting output from a scalar function as one single value, right? So we are returning as a value of only one data type. But here, when it comes to table value function will returns a table data as a result set. Let's say here in the previous example, if you see, when I pass employee ID here, it is returning only the name, which is of only one data type, right? But when it comes to here, if I can pass the employee ID, all the details we can also fetch it in the table value function. So you would have got a doubt here. why only we are fetching it employee name? Why can't we fetch all other details, right? So if you want to fetch all other details based on the input value, we have to use the table value function, which will return a table data as a result set, all the columns. The syntax for table value function is create function and then function name. The function name is get table result. I'm just using a name as a table result, any table. Or maybe if you are passing it here, this is the table name, maybe we are using this one. We can also pass table value also as a input parameter here by providing another parameter name, right? But I'm creating a function for explicitly this table name, right? Create function, get table result, and I'm passing as the input parameter the employee number, and it will returns. See, earlier we were returning values as worker or something, right here. But for table variable, we are passing value as a, I mean, it will returning, we are returning value as a table. So the full table data it will return based on our filter condition. So as, and then what it will return, that's what we need to write within the return statement. And it is returning select star from the table name where I am providing employee ID as input, right? So that filter I am using it here, where employee ID equals to @ employee number, right? So what are the column names? EID. Yeah, I think this is fine. So based on the employee number, the output will be select star from table M. This query will get executed, right? So let me show you the example here. Yeah, if I execute, I have executed it, and now these scalar functions you have seen it, it is storing in a scalar value functions. But for table value functions, you have to search it in here, the table value function. So let me refresh it. You will get confused, guys, in real time. So which function has to check where? So if it is a scalar function, you have to check under scalar function. If it is a table value, you should check here. See, a function has been created under the category of table value function. So to execute this table value function, you need to write, instead of select, you have to use select star from. Why? Because it is returning a table data, right? Correct. So how do you select a table data? By using star only, right? So select star from, which means all the record from this function, and I'm providing a input employee ID. It is returning all the IDs from this table name. So if you wanted, I can show you the column names as well. Here we have 4 columns, right? So from this table we are selecting it, is it? So you can see it. So for the 1111, this is the record what we have passed here. Let's say if I pass it 3333, you can see XYZ 25 something, right? Yeah. So this is how the table value function will work. Based on the input value you provide, it will return a table data as a result set. Guys, are you getting any doubts with these table value functions? Can we create any other operation, something like that? Think. See, in a stored procedure, we were able to implement creating a table, right? And we are able to implement updating a data, right? So can't we do it in a function? Can't we do it in a function? Let's see. Okay, I'll try to create a function. Create function, and then function name, maybe UDF underscore delete data, right? And then based on the employee ID, we should delete the data, right? @ EID int, and then returns table as, in the return we have to write our code, right? RETURN return, and then within the open braces and close, I'll write delete from employee where EID equals to @ EID. right? Let me try to create it. Syntax check. See what it is throwing. It is throwing incorrect syntax near the keyword delete. And if I change it to select star from, will it work? It is taking, right? But if I use it delete, it is not. Delete from. So which means what? No. Maybe update. Update table set ename equals to something, right? Where employee ID equals to this one. Let's see whether it is able to create it or not. See incorrect syntax near the keyword update. So except select, for each and every operation, it is throwing error, right? So the user defined functions, we cannot perform any DDL or DML operations other than select. So we can only select a data within a user defined function, right? We cannot perform any other operations other than the selecting a data from a table. Clear? Any questions on this? Okay. See here, we'll discuss now differences between user defined function and stored procedure. Guys, can you tell me at least if you remember the differences between these two after the explanation? Can anyone tell? User defined has both input and output parameters, or only it has input parameters? So user defined functions has only input parameters, whereas for stored procedure have both input and output parameters. This is one point. And then we can call a user defined function in stored procedure, but we cannot call ASP within a function, within a UDF, which means, see here, if I want to execute any stored procedure value, exec space, we cannot, but within a stored procedure, we can call this function. That is what the meaning is, right? So within the function, we can call select star from this get result, this function. If you wanted to show it as example, I can show you here quickly. Create procedure USP underscore, let me give UDF, right? And then I'll create input parameter as EAD int and as begin and then end. I'll just write this one, right? I'm calling, okay, let me remove this as well. Input parameter is not required. So straight away I'm just calling here select star from user defined function. So if I execute a stored procedure here, it is executing. And if I try to execute a data out of it, exec space, the function name, it is returning this function value. So I'm able to call this function here in a stored procedure. Yes, that is what this difference. We can call a stored procedure, we can call a function within a stored procedure, but we cannot call a stored procedure within a user defined function. So vice versa is not possible. Clear? And then we can perform DDL and DML operations in SP, whereas we cannot perform DDL or DML in a UDF other than select. Right? Agree for this point? Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
3 points. There are few other. I don't think so. It is that much important. Maybe few guys will tell some small things like you cannot perform. What is that? Transactions in a stored procedure function, whereas we can implement transactions in stored procedure. And few other are there. I think some 5 to 6 are there in, but the main differences are these 3. You can tell these 3 in interview. That's fine.
We can include types, right? Types of SP and UDF.
Types is not a difference, right? That's their definition. Maybe you mean to say input or not.
Yeah.
You mean to say scalar and then table value function. That is what you mean to say. The first point is the same, right?
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And guys, okay, that's it about the differences between user-defined function and stored procedure, and also the user-defined functions concept. But when it comes to real time, see here, I had taken my previous. See, I'm working with bank now, so I cannot take it out any scripts. Here, this is my previous company scripts here when I was working in 2014, right? So this is how they'll follow the template while creating a stored procedure in real time, which means what is the name of the stored procedure, who created it, on which date, what is the purpose of the stored procedure. They'll write it in a single description, right? And then if there are any changes, we'll add it here, on which date we changed it, right? So this is, we'll call it as a template. Stored procedure template will maintain at the top of the stored procedure, and then this is the code here. We are just declaring a few variables, and here we're declaring a start date as well, which is get date I'm assigning, and then insert into. We are inserting a data into this table. So you have to mention it this way. You have to give the column names while inserting data into a table. You should not give insert into table name and then select star from. See here, I am just using the column names, and this is the incremental that I'm using where not exist, and then I'm using a subquery based on the and conditions where clause, right? Yesterday we just discussed about it. See, check. And then at the rate row count, we are storing into a variable how many records is affected by this query, and I'm inserting into these variables, right? This is how in real time the stored procedure will look like. Okay, maybe I'll show you the more stored procedure in going forward classes. Okay, that's it for today, guys. I think it's time up. We'll connect on Monday for SSIS class. Okay, take time and try to complete the SQL topics by this weekend. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for joining, and if you have any doubts, you can message me on WhatsApp.